Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy announced a historic $42 billion capital plan to, you guessed it, buy even more Bitcoin. Meanwhile, the Bitcoin ETFs have officially surpassed 1 million Bitcoin held on behalf of customers as they continue to gobble up tens of thousands of Bitcoin per day. But there's only one problem. Only 492,000 Bitcoin will be mined over the next 3 years. So where will all of this supply come from? It seems that Bitcoin's exponential price pressure is about to burst. Welcome to Pure Bitcoin Signal. I'm Hurley, Director of Content with Swan. Now let's get right into it. Michael Saylor and his company MicroStrategy made a historic announcement this week, a $42 billion capital plan, which they are dubbing the 21+21 plan, because they plan to raise $21 billion in fixed income securities and a $21 billion at-the-money equity offering, which is the largest equity offering in the history of capital markets. This has been dubbed the public equity play on Bitcoin maximalism, and I'm here for it.
Another name in the space to watch is MicroStrategy, surging in the month, up around 45% in October. The company also announcing it plans to raise $42 billion over the next 3 years to buy even more Bitcoin. That is basically the public equity play on Bitcoin maximalism, and has been for a while.
Equity capital markets, alive and well.
For sure.
This historic plan would mean sustained daily Bitcoin buying pressure of $40 million per day for 3 years, which at today's prices is about 570 Bitcoin per day. You add that to the thousands of Bitcoin being purchased by ETF issuers daily, and you realize that one hell of a supply shock is brewing. You see, because of Bitcoin's diminishing supply schedule and increasing scarcity, only 492,000 Bitcoin will be mined over the next 3 years. So where will all this Bitcoin come from, you might ask? Well, the only thing that will release more Bitcoin onto the market is if the price rises significantly from here, encouraging holders to part with their precious sats. So this unprecedented buying pressure is building, and it's just a matter of time before it explodes parabolically higher. And along with Bitcoin, MicroStrategy just keeps winning. The real flippening just occurred the other day as MSTR officially flipped the market cap of Coinbase, the largest crypto exchange, or some may dub casino, in the world. This paints a stark image of the difference between a company built on the rock-solid foundation of Bitcoin versus a company built on the weak, crumbling foundation of crypto. Another example of this winning strategy is Japan's Metaplanet, which, although is much smaller in market cap than MicroStrategy, they're implementing their own Bitcoin strategy, and Metaplanet is now the best performing stock in Japan. This is sending a clear message to public companies of all sizes all over the world. Adopt a Bitcoin standard and win, which is exactly why Microsoft is holding a shareholders vote this month on whether or not to adopt their own Bitcoin strategy. Meanwhile, Bitcoin ETF issuers officially hold over 1 million Bitcoin on behalf of customers. It took only 9 months of the Bitcoin ETFs being traded on the market for them to buy nearly 5% of the total Bitcoin supply that will ever exist. Just let that sink in. Bitwise CIO Matt Hogan was on Yahoo Finance today talking about why this is the single best time to invest in Bitcoin from a risk-adjusted standpoint.
What then do you think is the number one catalyst for Bitcoin as you look ahead to some of your 2025 projections?
Look, I think this is the best single time to invest in Bitcoin from a risk-adjusted perspective. All of the major existential risks of Bitcoin have been washed away. We have an ETF, we have institutions, they are coming into the space. The biggest catalyst is that move of institutional adoption. We're seeing that accelerate. We saw $800 million in ETF flows yesterday alone. This is a tidal wave of institutional assets moving into the space. There's a fixed supply, and from my perspective, that means higher prices.
And you're saying it doesn't matter ultimately in the long run who is elected come next week. I'm curious then, because there's been so much talk about why Trump is better for Bitcoin or for the crypto community than Harris. It seems like, at least in the short term, maybe that is the case. But why are you confident, or I guess, why aren't you as concerned about the pullback that we could see if Harris is elected?
Look, I think we could see a short-term pullback, but in that case, I think it would be a major buying opportunity. That's right, specifically for Bitcoin. For those altcoins, I think there's more regulatory uncertainty.
As Hogan says, a tidal wave of institutional capital is on its way into Bitcoin. And this is on top of MicroStrategy's $42 billion and the thousands of Bitcoin being purchased by the ETFs already. Howard Lutnick, CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, which is set to become the first bank to custody Bitcoin, was recently on Palm's podcast talking about his Bitcoin conviction and how much of his wealth is currently in Bitcoin.
I have hundreds of millions of dollars.
Okay.
Hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars exposure to Bitcoin. And it will be billions.
I was going to say, so next year when you come back and we'll do this again and you'll be a Bitcoin billionaire and
yeah, but you remember that model I told you. So if every time Bitcoin dips, I'm going to be the buyer. Right?
Trust me, I know why you're doing the lending.
It's all coming. You're figuring it out.
Listen, you don't have to explain that one around here.
So I got the 50% Bitcoin. I got the Bitcoin lending. But basically, what you're going to see is Cantor Fitzgerald is going to be the sponsor of Bitcoin into traditional finance.
Mm-hmm.
And so we will be the leader of it. And I'll pull out this podcast in years to come and say, see, I told you, because no one's going to remember.
Of course.
Right. But all the banks, after we do it and show people how to do it right, they'll all copy.
Mm-hmm.
And so the asset of Bitcoin will just, as it becomes more accepted, it will become more valuable. And the whole Bitcoin nation should just call it a commodity, never a currency.
Mm-hmm.
Just call it a commodity. Because if it's a currency, you're attacking the politicians of the country,
mm-hmm.
right? You're trying to replace my currency with yours.
Mm-hmm.
But if you say, hey, I'm just oil, I'm just gold,
mm-hmm.
I'm just a commodity, leave me be, right? Then they'll leave you be. And that is true. And it will be why Bitcoin, which is rare and is special, will become ever more rare, as we both know,
mm-hmm.
ever more valuable over time. It'll be financed just like gold is, right? Gold is, it's not like super financeable, but it's financeable. Oil,
mm-hmm.
it's not super financeable,
mm-hmm.
but it's financeable, right? Bitcoin will be financeable. Bitcoin will be way, way, way higher, sometimes lower. You just have to have faith.
So Lutnick is exactly the type of institutional player that is currently buying Bitcoin during every price dip. And this type of accumulator will only increase as the scarcity and price increases. It's like a feedback loop that never ends. In the words of Michael Saylor, it's going up forever, Laura. Another metric that seems to be going up forever is the Bitcoin hash rate, which hit another all-time high today, reaching a whopping 736 exahash. For those that don't know, the hash rate is the amount of computing power securing the Bitcoin network globally. And Bitcoin is far and away the largest and most secure network on the planet. There is no runner-up. And nations all over the world are most definitely involved in mining Bitcoin. Like Argentina, for example. The Central Bank of Argentina opened an art exhibit yesterday that includes Bitcoin mining equipment actively mining Bitcoin. Which begs the question, how many other central banks or nation states are mining Bitcoin but in secret? I really feel like the institutional adoption is out in the open, but nation state adoption is the undercurrent. As David Bailey lays out in this crazy bullish post on X, where he says, there is an undercurrent of Bitcoin nation state adoption happening behind the scenes. At this point, it seems like most developing nations have funded a domestic mining program as a test. Early movers are transitioning from 100 plus megawatt pilots to gigawatt scale projects. Next, we'll be establishing a national Bitcoin reserve, either through a strategic stockpile via the central bank or via sovereign wealth funds. The Overton window has shifted so dramatically on this topic. I think we're just months away from a nation state, or a few, entering the market in size, billions of dollars every month. So all of this means that no one is prepared for where Bitcoin goes over the next few years. But you can prepare by buying Bitcoin through services like Swan. Visit swan.com or download the app by searching Swan Bitcoin in the App Store. Swan has the fastest and easiest onboarding experience in the industry. You go from sign up to buying real Bitcoin within minutes. Plus, you get your first $10,000 in Bitcoin purchases with zero fees. So front run the institutions and nation states with Swan today. That's it. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and share it with friends and family. And of course, subscribe to the channel for more Bitcoin Signal. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend. And remember, TikTok next block.